The morning sun peeked through the worn blinds of Andre's one-bedroom apartment. He'd been awake long before his alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. Today wasn't just any ordinary Tuesday. It was the day that could change everything for him. Andre sat on the edge of his bed, taking a deep breath as he looked at the suit hanging on his closet door. It wasn't anything fancy, just a navy blue suit he'd bought 3 years ago for his cousin's wedding. But it was clean, recently pressed, and the only professional outfit he owned. Today's the day, he whispered to himself, a ritual he'd developed over the years whenever something important was on the horizon. At 32, Andre had spent most of his adult life working with his hands. He had a natural talent for fixing things, especially cars. His grandfather had taught him the basics when he was just a kid, letting him hand over tools and watch closely as he brought old engines back to life. By the time Andre was in high school, he could diagnose most common car problems just by listening to an engine run. He'd worked at Johnson's auto shop for 5 years, the longest he'd stayed at any job. Mr. Johnson was fair and respected. Andre's skills, often leaving him in charge when more complicated repairs came in. But 6 months ago, the shop had closed down. The neighborhood was changing, property taxes went up, and Mr. Johnson couldn't keep up with the newer, flashier auto centers that had opened nearby. Since then, Andre had been patching together an income. He fixed cars in parking lots and driveways across the city. He helped friends of friends who'd heard, "This guy Andre can fix anything with an engine." He'd even started a small side business buying broken-down cars, fixing them up, and selling them for a modest profit. But none of it was steady. None of it came with health insurance or paid time off or any kind of security. Andre headed to the bathroom, turning on the shower and waiting for the temperamental water heater to kick in. As steam began to fill the small space, he caught his reflection in the mirror. The worry lines around his eyes seemed deeper these days. His mother had commented on it when he visited last Sunday, asking if he was getting enough sleep. The truth was he wasn't. Most nights, he stayed up late looking through job postings, revising his resume, or watching tutorial videos to keep his skills sharp. Sometimes, when anxiety got the better of him, he'd just stare at the ceiling, calculating how long his savings would last if he couldn't find steady work soon. But today could change all that. Horizon Technologies was hiring for their technical support team. It wasn't exactly what Andre had done before, it was better. A corporate job with one of the biggest tech companies in the city, the kind of place with an actual HR department and benefits packages. The kind of place where people had careers, not just jobs. Andre had applied without much hope. His formal education stopped after community college, where he'd earned an associate's degree in automotive technology. But the job posting had emphasized practical problem-solving skills and hands-on technical experience, so he'd given it a shot. When the email came inviting him for an interview, Andre had to read it 3 times to believe it was real. After his shower, Andre carefully dressed, taking extra time with each button of his shirt, making sure his tie was straight. The suit fit a little tighter than it had 3 years ago, but it would do. He polished his shoes one last time, buffing them until he could see his reflection. His apartment was in the east side of the city, and Horizon's headquarters were downtown, about a 45-minute drive in good traffic. His interview wasn't until 11 a.m., but Andre planned to leave by 8:30. He'd rather be ridiculously early than risk being even 1 minute late. He made himself a simple breakfast, 2 eggs, toast, and coffee, though his stomach was too knotted with nerves to enjoy it. As he ate, he reviewed the notes he'd made about the company. Horizon Technologies had started 15 years ago and had grown to become one of the leading tech firms in the region. They specialized in software for healthcare systems, which meant their work actually helped people. That appealed to Andre. The idea of being part of something that mattered. He'd practiced potential interview questions with his sister on the phone last night. She worked in corporate America and knew the kind of things they might ask. Andre had stumbled over some answers, especially when she asked about his 5-year plan or his greatest professional achievement. His sister had been patient, helping him frame his experience in ways that might impress a corporate hiring team. "Just be yourself," she'd told him finally. "You're smart, you work hard, and you don't give up." That matters more than fancy words. Andre hoped she was right. At 8:15, he gathered his things. His folder contained extra copies of his resume, a list of references, and certificates from various automotive training programs he'd completed over the years. He picked up his keys, took one last look around his apartment, and headed for the door. His car was a source of both pride and amusement. It was a 2008 Honda Civic that had been through hell and back. Andre had bought it for next to nothing after it had been written off as unsalvageable following a bad accident. Most of his friends had laughed when they saw the crumpled mess he'd towed home. But over 6 months of evenings and weekends, Andre had brought it back to life, replacing parts, straightening the frame, and eventually repainting it a deep forest green. The car wasn't pretty. It had its share of dents and scratches that spoke to its history, but it ran perfectly. Andre had rebuilt the engine himself, and he knew every sound it made, every quirk it had. The car was reliable, which was all that mattered to him. As he drove out of his neighborhood, Andre turned on the radio, finding a station playing old soul music. The familiar melodies helped calm his nerves as he merged onto the highway heading downtown. The traffic was lighter than he expected. A good sign, he thought. Maybe luck was on his side today. He rehearsed potential answers in his head as he drove. Why did he want this job? Because it offered stability and growth potential. What were his strengths? Problem solving, attention to detail, and persistence. What was his biggest weakness? Sometimes he focused too much on getting things perfect. Andre wasn't sure if these were the right answers, but they were honest ones. And his sister's advice echoed in his head. Just be yourself. The downtown skyline came into view, glass buildings catching the morning sunlight. Andre had rarely had reason to come to this part of the city. Most of his clients lived in neighborhoods more like his own, working class, practical, where people kept things until they broke and then tried to fix them rather than replace them. He checked the time, just after 9 a.m. He was making excellent time. With almost 2 hours to spare, Andre decided to find the building first, just to know exactly where he was going, and then find a coffee shop where he could review his notes one last time. As he took the downtown exit, a sense of possibility washed over him. Maybe this was it, the break he'd been waiting for, a chance to use his skills in a new way, to build something more secure for his future. The highway stretched out before him, morning sun glinting off the cars ahead. Andre adjusted his grip on the steering wheel, sitting up a little straighter. Whatever happened in that interview room today, he was ready. He'd prepared as much as he could. Now it was just a matter of getting there and showing them what he could do. What Andre couldn't know as he drove steadily toward downtown was that fate had other plans for him this morning. Plans that would test his character, derail his carefully laid preparations, and ultimately lead him somewhere he never expected. Because sometimes life's most important turns come when we think we're driving straight ahead. Andre had just passed the 10-mile marker on the highway when he spotted it. A sleek, black Range Rover pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking urgently against the morning sun. Next to it stood a woman in a tailored gray suit, phone pressed to her ear, free hand gesturing in what looked like frustration. He almost drove past. After all, he had his interview to get to. And people with cars that expensive usually had roadside assistance just a phone call away. But something made him glance in his rearview mirror one more time. The woman had lowered her phone now and was staring at the vehicle with a look Andre recognized all too well, the helpless anxiety of someone stranded when they desperately needed to be somewhere else. Before he could overthink it, Andre signaled and eased his Honda onto the shoulder about 20 feet behind the Range Rover. He checked his watch. 17 a.m. He still had plenty of time before his interview. 5 minutes, he told himself. I'll just make sure she's got help coming. He stepped out of his car, immediately feeling overdressed in his interview suit as a passing truck sent a blast of wind that tugged at his tie. As he approached, he could see the woman was in her mid-40s with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her suit probably cost more than 3 months of Andre's rent, but her face showed the universal expression of someone having a very bad day. Car trouble? Andre called out as he got closer, keeping a respectful distance. The woman looked up, her expression a mixture of surprise and wariness that Andre had grown used to over the years. A well-dressed black man was still a stranger on a highway. Yes, she said after a moment, slipping her phone into her pocket. It just died while I was driving. No warning, nothing. Her voice carried a slight accent he couldn't place. I'm a mechanic, Andre said, gesturing to her car. Mind if I take a look? No charge or anything, just thought I might be able to help. The wariness in her eyes gave way to relief. Really? That would be wonderful. A said it would be at least 2 hours before they could get someone out here. She extended her hand. I'm Elaine. Andre, he replied, shaking her hand. 2 hours? That's rough. You trying to get somewhere important? Elaine sighed, checking her watch. Very. I have meetings starting at 11 that I absolutely cannot miss. Andre nodded, feeling a connection in their shared morning pressure. Same here, actually. I've got a job interview at 11 downtown. He gestured toward the hood. Mind if I pop this open and see what's going on? Please, she said, pressing the hood release from inside the car. As the hood lifted, Andre loosened his tie slightly and leaned in to examine the engine. The Range Rover was only a couple years old from what he could tell, not something that should be breaking down on the highway. So what do you do? Elaine asked, standing a few feet away, arms crossed against the morning breeze. Right now, a bit of everything, Andre said, carefully checking connections. I was working at an auto shop for years, but it closed down. Since then, I've been doing independent repair work while looking for something more permanent. His hands moved methodically across the engine components, eyes scanning for obvious issues. That's why today's interview is so important. It would be my first corporate job. Where's the interview? She asked. Horizon Technologies, Andre replied, not looking up as he found what he suspected was the problem. They're downtown in that big glass building on 7th Street. There was a slight pause before Elaine responded. I've heard it's a good company to work for. Andre nodded, straightening up. That's what I've heard too. Good benefits, room to grow. I figured it was a long shot when I applied, but here we are. He wiped his hands on the small towel he'd grabbed from his car. I think I found your problem. You've got a loose connection to your battery terminal and a broken serpentine belt. The belt is what ultimately caused you to break down, but the loose connection probably wouldn't have helped either. Elaine's brow furrowed. Can it be fixed here, or do I need to get it towed? Andre glanced back at his car, thinking of the tools he had in his trunk. He always kept a basic repair kit with him, a habit from his days doing mobile repairs. He checked his watch again. 9:29 a.m. If he left now, he'd still arrive with plenty of time to spare for his interview. I have tools that could fix it, he said slowly, calculating in his head. The belt replacement wouldn't be too complicated on this model. But honestly, it would take at least an hour, maybe more. You'd probably be better off with the tow if you can wait. Elaine looked visibly deflated. An hour would actually be amazing compared to waiting for a tow and then getting to a shop. She hesitated. But I couldn't ask you to do that. You have your interview. Andre felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. On one hand, he had planned meticulously for this interview, an opportunity that could change the course of his career. On the other hand, here was someone who needed help with something he could easily fix. What time did you say your meetings start? He asked. 11, she replied. Andre nodded, making some quick calculations. If he started right away and everything went smoothly, he might be able to fix her car and still make it to his interview. It would be cutting it extremely close, but it was possible. He thought about what his grandfather would do in this situation. The old man had always told him, your skills were given to you to help others, not just yourself. Tell you what, Andre said, decision made. Let me see what I've got in my trunk. I think I might even have a spare belt that would fit this model. I've been collecting parts from various jobs. Elaine's expression brightened. Are you sure? I don't want to make you late for your interview. It's fine, Andre said, though a small voice in the back of his head questioned his decision. Let me get my tools. As he walked back to his car, Andre felt a strange mix of emotions. Worry about potentially jeopardizing his interview, but also a sense of purpose. This was what he was good at, fixing things, solving problems, helping people get back on the road. He opened his trunk and pulled out his toolbox and a plastic bin where he kept spare parts. By some stroke of luck, he actually did have a serpentine belt that would fit Elaine's Range Rover. He'd bought it for another job that ended up not needing it. When he returned to Elaine's car, tools and belt in hand, she was on her phone again. She quickly ended the call when she saw him. Just letting my assistant know I might be delayed, she explained. You actually have the parts to fix it? Andre held up the belt. Got lucky. Now let's see if we can get you back on the road. He set his tools down carefully and removed his suit jacket, folding it neatly and placing it on the passenger seat of the Range Rover. Rolling up his sleeves, he got to work. As Andre worked, Elaine asked him questions about his background, his experience as a mechanic, and his interest in Horizon Technologies. There was something easy about talking to her. She listened intently and asked thoughtful follow-up questions that showed she was actually paying attention. "So what made you apply to Horizon specifically?" she asked as Andre carefully removed the damaged belt. "Honestly," Andre said, hands working steadily, "they're doing work that matters. Their software helps hospitals run more efficiently, which means people get better care. Plus, they have a reputation for treating their employees right." He paused, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "My sister always says I should aim higher than I think I can reach." Applying to Horizon was me trying to follow her advice. Elaine smiled at that. "Your sister sounds wise." She watched him work for a moment. "You know, problem-solving skills like yours are valuable in any industry, not just automotive repair." Andre nodded, focused on aligning the new belt correctly. "That's what I'm hoping the hiring manager will think too." As he worked, cars and trucks rushed by on the highway, creating a rhythmic background noise. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and Andre was grateful for the occasional cloud that provided moments of shade. Despite the pressure of time ticking away, he found himself enjoying the straightforward challenge of the repair and Elaine's company. She wasn't what he'd expected from someone driving a car like hers. There was no impatience, no looking down at him as he worked. Instead, she seemed genuinely interested in his story and appreciative of his help. When Andre finally reconnected the battery terminal and tightened it properly, he straightened up and checked his watch. His heart sank a little. It was 10:37 a.m. Even if he left right now and hit no traffic, he'd barely make it to his interview on time. And he still needed to clean up and make himself presentable again. "Moment of truth," he said to Elaine, trying to keep his voice light despite his growing anxiety. "Try starting it up." Elaine slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The Range Rover's engine purred to life immediately, strong and steady. Relief washed over her face as she stepped back out of the car. "You did it," she said, beaming at him. "I can't thank you enough, Andre." He smiled back, already calculating the fastest route downtown in his head. Maybe, just maybe, if everything aligned perfectly, he could still make it. Andre wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve, leaving a small smudge of grease. The Range Rover's engine hummed perfectly, but the clock on his phone showed 10:37 a.m. His stomach tightened. Downtown was at least 25 minutes away in good traffic, and he'd need time to clean up before walking into Horizon Technologies. "Is everything okay?" Elaine asked, noticing his expression change as he checked the time. Andre forced a smile. "Yeah, it's running great now. Just realizing I might be cutting it close for my interview." He began gathering his tools, trying to move quickly without seeming rushed. "Oh no," Elaine said, her voice filled with genuine concern. "What time was it again?" 11, Andre replied, placing wrenches back in their proper slots in his toolbox. He had always been methodical about his tools, even when in a hurry. Elaine checked her own watch and frowned. "Andre, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it would take this long." "You should have said something," he shrugged, closing the toolbox with a click. "Honestly, I thought I could do both. Fix your car and make it to the interview on time." Turns out the belt was trickier to replace on this model than I expected. For a moment, Andre stood still, the weight of his decision finally hitting him. He had just sacrificed what could have been a life-changing opportunity to help a stranger. The realization should have filled him with regret, but strangely it didn't. "Let me call them," he said, pulling out his phone. "Maybe they can reschedule." As he dialed the number from the email he'd received, Andre walked a few steps away for privacy. The call connected quickly. "Horizon Technologies, how may I direct your call?" a polite voice answered. "Hi, my name is Andre Wilson. I have an interview scheduled for 11 o'clock today for the technical support position, but I'm helping someone with an emergency on the highway and won't be able to make it on time." There was a pause and the sound of typing. "Let me check with the hiring manager, Mr. Wilson. Please hold." Andre waited, watching cars speed by, each one heading somewhere important. After what felt like forever but was probably only a minute, the receptionist returned. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, but the hiring manager's schedule is completely full for the rest of the week. She says she understands emergencies happen, but they need to move forward with other candidates who can make the scheduled interviews." Andre closed his eyes briefly. "I understand. Thank you anyway." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Taking a deep breath, he returned to where Elaine was waiting by her car. "No luck?" she asked, seeing his expression. Andre shook his head. "No. They're moving on with other candidates." He tried to keep his voice neutral, but disappointment crept in around the edges. Elaine looked genuinely distressed. "Andre, I feel terrible about this. You missed your interview because you were helping me." "Don't worry about it," he said, picking up his toolbox. "It was my choice. Besides, I couldn't just leave you stranded here." The truth was, despite the outcome, Andre knew he'd make the same decision again. His grandfather had raised him to believe that character was defined by the choices you make when no one's keeping score. Today, he'd chosen to help someone in need, even at a cost to himself. "At least let me pay you for your time and the parts," Elaine said, reaching for her purse in the car. Andre hesitated. He hadn't stopped to help for money, but the reality was that he needed it. The belt alone had cost him $40 when he'd bought it. "How much do I owe you?" Elaine asked, wallet in hand. "The belt was $40, Andre said. "As for the labor," he paused, uncomfortable with setting a price. Elaine pulled out several bills. "How about $300? That seems fair for saving me from being towed and getting me back on the road so quickly." Andre's eyes widened slightly. $300 was more than fair, it was generous. That amount would cover his electric bill and groceries for the week. "That's too much," he started to say, but Elaine was already holding out the money. "Please," she said firmly. "You provided a premium service and sacrificed an important opportunity to do so. This is the least I can do." After a moment's hesitation, Andre accepted the money with a nod of thanks. As he did, a drop of oil from his hands left a small mark on one of the bills. It was a reminder of the work he'd done and the interview suit he'd ruined in the process. "Let me give you my card," Elaine said, reaching into her jacket pocket. "I know a lot of people who could use a reliable mechanic." She handed him a business card, but Andre barely glanced at it before tucking it into his shirt pocket. His mind was already shifting to what he would do next. Perhaps check online for other job openings when he got home. "And I'd like your contact information as well," Elaine continued, "for future reference." Andre pulled out his phone and they exchanged numbers. As he saved her contact, he simply put Elaine, Range Rover Highway, as a reminder of where they'd met. "I really am sorry about your interview," Elaine said as she prepared to leave. "But for what it's worth, I think any company would be lucky to have someone with your skills and character." Andre appreciated the kind words, even if they didn't change his situation. "Thanks, I hope your meetings go well." "They will now, thanks to you." Elaine smiled warmly. "You know, sometimes things work out in ways we don't expect." With a final handshake, Elaine got into her car and pulled away, merging smoothly back onto the highway. Andre watched until the Range Rover disappeared around a bend, then turned back to his own car with a sigh. His reflection in the window showed the full extent of what the morning's work had cost him. His once crisp white shirt was now stained with grease and sweat. His tie hung loosely around his neck, and his hands, despite his best efforts to keep them clean, were marked with the evidence of his labor. No company would interview him looking like this, even if he could make it downtown in time. The realization brought a wave of disappointment that he couldn't quite push away. Andre put his tools back in the trunk and slid behind the wheel of his Honda. For a long moment, he just sat there, key in the ignition but not starting the car. The $300 in his pocket felt both like a consolation prize and a bitter reminder of what might have been. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Good luck today. You're going to nail that interview." Andre stared at the message, unsure how to respond. How could he explain that he'd given up this chance for a stranger with a broken-down luxury car? Would his sister understand, or would she think he'd made a foolish choice? After a moment, he simply replied, "Something came up. Tell you about it later." Then he started the car and pulled back onto the highway, heading home instead of toward downtown. As he drove, he tried to focus on the positive. He'd helped someone today. He had some extra cash in his pocket, and maybe Elaine really would refer him to people who needed a mechanic. But the what-ifs kept creeping in. What if that had been his one shot at Horizon Technologies? What if he had to keep scraping by with freelance repair work for months more? What if he'd made the wrong choice? Andre turned on the radio, hoping music would drown out the doubts. An old soul song was playing, one his grandfather used to hum while working on cars in their driveway. The familiar melody brought back memories of the old man's hands, steady and sure, as he taught Andre how to listen to an engine, how to feel when something wasn't right. The work you do with your hands is honest work, his grandfather had told him once. Never be ashamed of it. But remember, your brain is your best tool. Don't let anyone tell you that you can only be one thing in this life. As the city skyline receded in his rearview mirror, Andre found himself wondering what his grandfather would think of his choice today. He had a feeling the old man would have nodded in approval, even while asking what Andre planned to do next. That was the question now hanging in the air as Andre merged onto the exit ramp toward his neighborhood. What would he do next? He had no answer yet, just the open road ahead and the knowledge that, for better or worse, he had stayed true to the values his grandfather had instilled in him. Maybe that was enough for today. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new choices, and maybe, just maybe, helping Elaine would lead to something he couldn't yet imagine. The apartment felt smaller when Andre returned home. He hung his grease-stained suit on the bathroom door with a mental note to take it to the dry cleaners, though he wasn't sure if they could save it. After a long shower, he sat at his kitchen table in worn jeans and a faded t-shirt, staring at his laptop screen as it displayed job listings. None looked as promising as Horizon Technologies had been. His phone rang, his sister Tanya calling. He had been avoiding this conversation, but he couldn't put it off forever. "Hey," he answered, trying to sound upbeat. "So, how did it go?"
"Did you wow them?"
"When's the second interview?" Tanya's excited voice came through clearly, full of the confidence she always had in him. Andre sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. "I didn't make it to the interview." "What? Why not?" "Andre, please tell me you didn't oversleep or something." "No, nothing like that," he said. "I left early, just like we planned. But on the way there, I saw this woman broken down on the side of the highway." There was a pause. "And let me guess, you stopped to help her." Her car had a busted serpentine belt. She needed to get to some important meetings. By the time I fixed it, it was too late for my interview. The explanation sounded weak even to his own ears, despite being the truth. Tanya was quiet for a moment before responding. "You stopped to help a stranger and missed a job interview that could have changed your life." Her voice wasn't angry. It was something worse. Disappointed. "I called to reschedule," Andre added quickly. "They said they're moving forward with other candidates." "Of course they are," Tanya said. "That's how corporate America works, Andre. Opportunities don't wait. You've been looking for something stable for months, and when you finally get a shot at a good company..." She didn't finish the sentence. "She didn't have to, I know," Andre said quietly. "But I couldn't just drive past. You should have seen her, Tanya. She was stranded, and I had the skills to help. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to help yourself for once," Tanya replied, her voice softening. "I love that you always put others first. It's one of your best qualities. But sometimes, Andre, you have to look out for your own future, too." The conversation continued for a while, with Tanya eventually moving from disappointment to brainstorming other job possibilities. By the time they hung up, Andre felt slightly better, but her initial reaction still stung. She wasn't wrong. He had made a choice that might cost him dearly. The rest of the day passed slowly. Andre applied for 3 more jobs online, none as promising as Horizon. He made spaghetti for dinner, eating alone at his kitchen counter while scrolling through social media on his phone. Posts from former co-workers showed them moving on with their lives. New jobs, vacations, one even buying a house. Meanwhile, he was still treading water. That night, sleep came fitfully. He dreamed of driving on an endless highway, constantly passing broken-down cars but never reaching his destination. The next morning, Andre woke to a text from Miguel, an old client who needed help with his food truck's refrigeration system. It wasn't much, but it was work. He texted back that he'd be there by 10. As he got ready, his eyes caught Elaine's business card, still in the shirt pocket where he'd tucked it yesterday. He pulled it out, finally taking a proper look. His heart skipped a beat as he read, "Elaine Winters, Chief Executive Officer, Horizon Technologies." Andre sat down hard on the edge of his bed, staring at the card in disbelief. The woman he'd helped on the highway, the woman whose car trouble had made him miss his interview, was the CEO of the very company he'd been trying to interview with. The coincidence seemed too strange to be real. For a wild moment, Andre wondered if it had been some kind of test, if she had somehow known he was an applicant. But that was impossible. They had met by pure chance on that highway. He turned the card over in his hands, unsure what to do with this information. Should he call her? What would he even say? Hey, remember me, the guy who fixed your car? Funny story, I was on my way to interview at your company. It all seemed too awkward, too presumptuous. Besides, she was the CEO. She probably had no involvement in hiring for the position he had applied for. Andre tucked the card into his wallet and headed out to Miguel's food truck. Life had to go on, interviews or no interviews. The day passed in a blur of practical problems and straightforward solutions. The food truck's refrigeration system needed a new compressor, which took Andre most of the day to source and install. Miguel paid him in cash and threw in free tacos, which Andre accepted gratefully. By the time he got home that evening, he was physically tired, but mentally clearer. He had always found that working with his hands helped settle his thoughts. He checked his email as he ate his dinner. More job listings, a bill reminder, and spam. Nothing from Horizon Technologies, not that he expected anything. After dinner, Andre pulled out his toolbox and began cleaning and organizing his tools, a ritual that always calmed him. Each wrench, screwdriver, and socket had a place. There was something satisfying about returning everything to order, about maintaining the instruments of his trade. As he worked, he thought about Elaine Winters, CEO of Horizon Technologies. He wondered what she was like as a boss. She had seemed kind and respectful during their encounter, not looking down on him for being a mechanic. That said something about her character, he thought. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. An unfamiliar number with the city's area code. Hello? Andre answered cautiously. Hello, is this Andre Wilson? A professional-sounding woman asked. Yes, speaking. This is Patricia from Human Resources at Horizon Technologies. I hope I'm not calling too late. Andre's heart jumped. No, not at all. Great, I'm calling because we'd like to invite you for an interview for the technical support position. Would you be available tomorrow morning at 10? Andre sat in stunned silence for a moment. I'm sorry, but I'm a bit confused. I thought you were moving forward with other candidates. Yes, that was our initial response, Patricia acknowledged. However, we've had a request from upper management to reconsider your application. Apparently, someone was quite impressed with your problem-solving skills. Upper management. Elaine Winters, Yes, I'm available tomorrow at 10, Andre managed to say. Excellent, Patricia replied. And don't worry about the formal dress code. Business casual is fine for this position. After confirming the details, Andre ended the call and sat motionless, trying to process what had just happened. Elaine must have recognized his name from when he mentioned the interview. She had intervened personally to give him another chance. Part of him felt uncomfortable with the idea. He didn't want special treatment or charity. He wanted to earn his position based on his skills and qualifications. But another part of him recognized that this wasn't charity. It was recognition. Elaine had seen him solve a complex problem under pressure. She had witnessed firsthand his technical abilities and work ethic. Maybe this was less about giving him a break and more about recognizing talent where she found it. Andre called Tanya immediately to share the news. I told you things happen for a reason, she exclaimed after he explained everything. This is even better than if you'd made the first interview. The CEO knows who you are now. Yeah, but what if I'm not what they're looking for? Andre countered, doubt creeping in. What if she's just doing this because she feels guilty that I missed the interview helping her? Stop it, Tanya said firmly. You're qualified for this job. You've got the skills and the experience. All she did was make sure you got a fair shot. The rest is up to you. After talking with his sister, Andre spent the evening preparing for the interview, researching the company more thoroughly, and practicing potential questions and answers. He went to bed feeling a mix of nervousness and hope. The next morning, he stood in front of his closet, wondering what to wear. His good suit was at the dry cleaners, but Patricia had said business casual was fine. He selected his best pair of khakis, a crisp blue button-down shirt, and a navy blazer he rarely had occasion to wear. As he dressed, Andre thought about the strange twists life could take. Yesterday, he had been mourning a lost opportunity. Today, he was preparing for a second chance that he never expected to get. Whether this interview led to a job or not, Andre felt he had learned something important from this experience. Sometimes doing the right thing didn't lead where you expected. Sometimes it led somewhere better. With that thought in mind, he headed out the door, ready to face whatever the day might bring. The Horizon Technologies building looked even more impressive up close than it had from the highway. Sunlight bounced off its glass exterior, making the whole structure shine like a beacon against the clear blue sky. Andre checked his reflection in the mirrored doors before entering. His blue button-down shirt was crisp, his khakis pressed, his blazer fitting just right across his shoulders. Business casual, but the best version of it he could manage. Inside, the lobby hummed with activity. People in smart clothes moved with purpose, badges dangling from lanyards around their necks. Andre approached the reception desk where a friendly-faced older man looked up at him. "Good morning. How can I help you?" the receptionist asked. "I'm Andre Wilson. I have an interview at 10 o'clock for the technical support position." The receptionist checked his computer. "Yes, Mr. Wilson. Someone will be down to meet you shortly. Please have a seat." Andre sat in one of the modern-looking chairs in the waiting area, taking in his surroundings. Everything about the place spoke of success, from the sleek furniture to the massive company logo mounted on the wall. He tried to picture himself working here, walking through these doors every morning, being part of whatever happened beyond the security gates. A young woman in a charcoal pantsuit approached him. "Mr. Wilson? I'm Renee from HR. Thank you for coming in today." She extended her hand, which Andre shook firmly. "Please follow me." As they walked through security and toward the elevators, Renee made small talk about the weather and asked if he had trouble finding the building. Andre responded politely, all while noticing details about the workplace: the clean, bright hallways, the modern art on the walls, the quiet buzz of productivity coming from open doorways. "The technical support team is on the 4th floor," Renee explained as they stepped into an elevator. "But we'll be conducting your interview in one of our conference rooms on the executive level, if that's all right with you." "Of course," Andre replied, though he wondered why a technical support candidate would be interviewed on the executive level. Was this standard procedure, or was it because of his encounter with Elaine? The elevator whisked them upward, stopping at the 12th floor. The doors opened to reveal a space that was noticeably more luxurious than the lobby. Thicker carpet, wood-paneled walls, fewer people moving about. "This way," Renee said, leading him down a hallway to a glass-walled conference room. "The hiring team will join you shortly. Would you like coffee or water while you wait?" "Water would be great, thanks," Andre said, his mouth suddenly dry. Left alone in the conference room, Andre tried to stay calm. He reviewed the company information he'd studied and the questions he'd prepared. His phone buzzed with a text from Tanya. "You've got this." He smiled, appreciating her support despite her initial disappointment in him. The door opened and Renee returned with a bottle of water and a folder. "They'll be right in," she assured him, placing both on the table before leaving again. Andre took a sip of water just as the door opened once more. A man in his 40s entered first, followed by a younger woman with glasses who carried a tablet, and then, behind them, came Elaine Winters. She looked different in this setting, more commanding somehow, her dark suit impeccably tailored, her posture radiating authority. But her smile was the same as when she had thanked him on the highway. "Mr. Wilson," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm David Chen, IT Director. This is Liz Powell from our technical team, and I believe you've already met our CEO, Ms. Winters." Andre stood to shake hands with everyone, his eyes meeting Elaine's last. "Yes, we've met," he said, unsure how much the others knew about their encounter. "Under unusual circumstances," Elaine added with a small smile. "Please, everyone, let's sit." As they settled around the table, Andre couldn't help feeling like he had walked into a situation he didn't fully understand. The IT director and Liz both had his resume in front of them and began with standard interview questions. What was his experience with different software systems? How had he handled difficult customers in the past? What approaches did he take to troubleshooting complex problems? Andre answered each question thoughtfully, drawing parallels between his automotive repair experience and the technical support role. He explained how diagnosing a car problem wasn't so different from troubleshooting a software issue. Both required systematic thinking, attention to detail, and sometimes creative solutions. Throughout, Elaine remained mostly silent, occasionally nodding or making notes. Andre couldn't tell what she was thinking, which made him increasingly nervous. After about 20 minutes of technical questions, David leaned back in his chair. "Well, Mr. Wilson, your background is certainly unconventional for this position. but I appreciate how you've connected your experience to the role. Andre nodded, feeling this was the moment to address the elephant in the room. I understand that my background is different from what you might typically look for, but I believe that problem-solving skills translate across fields, and I'm a quick learner when it comes to new technologies. Liz spoke up. I'm curious, what made you apply to Horizon specifically? There must be plenty of automotive shops looking for someone with your expertise. Andre glanced briefly at Elaine before answering. Honestly, I was looking for something more stable with room to grow. But beyond that, I researched Horizon and was impressed by the work you do. Your software helps hospitals run more efficiently, which means better care for patients. I wanted to be part of something that makes a positive difference. David and Liz exchanged looks, and then David turned to Elaine. Ms. Winters, did you have any questions for Mr. Wilson? Elaine set down her pen. Just one, really. Andre, when you stopped to help me on the highway, you knew you had an important interview. You knew it was a risk to your own future. Why did you make that choice? The room grew quiet. Andre could feel all eyes on him. This was the real interview question, he realized, the one that mattered most. I made that choice because... Andre paused, searching for the right words. Because some things are more important than opportunities. You needed help, and I had the ability to provide it. My grandfather always taught me that our skills aren't just for our own benefit. They're meant to be used in service to others when needed. He met Elaine's gaze directly. I won't say I didn't have regrets when I realized I'd missed the interview. But I know I made the right choice and I'd make it again. A small smile played at the corners of Elaine's mouth. Even knowing who I was? Especially then, Andre replied without hesitation. Because it would have meant I helped you for the wrong reasons. Elaine nodded slowly, looking satisfied with his answer. She turned to David and Liz. Thank you both for your time. I'd like a few minutes alone with Mr. Wilson, if that's all right. The other two interviewers gathered their things and left the room, closing the door behind them. Alone with Elaine, Andre felt a strange mixture of nervousness and calm. So, Elaine said, leaning forward, let's speak candidly. When I saw your name on the interview schedule after our encounter, I was intrigued. When I heard you'd missed that interview because you were helping me, I felt responsible. You don't need to, Andre began, but Elaine held up a hand. Let me finish. Yes, I asked HR to reschedule your interview, but not out of guilt or charity. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. I did it because I saw something on that highway that impressed me. You solved a complex problem under pressure. You were honest, capable, and put someone else's needs before your own. Those are qualities we value at Horizon. She leaned back in her chair. The position you applied for requires technical skills, which you clearly have even if they're from a different field. But it also requires the kind of character I witnessed firsthand. That's much harder to assess in a traditional interview setting. Andre nodded, uncertain where this was heading. David and Liz don't know this yet, but I'm not considering you for the technical support position, Elaine continued. Andre felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. Had he misunderstood the purpose of this interview? I'm considering you for something else entirely, Elaine said, smiling at his confusion. We're launching a new department next month focused on customer success, ensuring our hospital clients are getting the most from our software and solving problems before they escalate. We need people who can build relationships, understand complex systems, and find creative solutions. Based on what I've seen, you might be a perfect fit. Andre sat in stunned silence. The role would involve some training, of course, Elaine continued. You'd need to learn our software systems. But the starting salary is 20% higher than the technical support position, with better advancement opportunities. I don't know what to say, Andre finally managed. You don't need to decide right now, Elaine said, sliding a folder across the table to him. Here's information about the position, including benefits and expectations. Review it and we can talk again on Monday. Andre looked down at the folder, then back at Elaine. Can I ask why? Why take this chance on me? Elaine's expression softened slightly. Because success in business isn't just about qualifications on paper. It's about character, judgment, and how people perform when it matters most. She stood up, signaling the end of their conversation. You showed me who you are on that highway, Andre. Sometimes, that's worth more than any resume. As Andre left the Horizon building 30 minutes later, contract offer in hand, he paused to look up at the gleaming tower. The path that had led him here was nothing like what he'd imagined when he'd applied for that technical support position. A broken-down car on the highway, a missed interview, a chance encounter with a CEO. None of it planned, all of it necessary. He pulled out his phone and called Tanya. "Well?" She answered immediately. "How did it go?" Andre looked up at the building that would soon be his workplace and smiled. "You were right," he told his sister. "Things really do happen for a reason."